Your garden soil is dead, and every bag of fertilizer you buy is just feeding the plants while the soil underneath gets worse, turning into lifeless dirt that grows weaker crops every single year until nothing will grow at all. Most gardeners think the solution is more fertilizer, more chemicals, and more money spent every season. But John Seymour proved in the new Self-Sufficient Gardener that you can take exhausted, lifeless soil and transform it into rich, fertile ground in just 1 or 2 years using 10 specific plants that fix nitrogen from the air, break up compacted layers, and build humus without spending a single dollar on chemical fertilizers. This is not about adding amendments or buying products. This is about using plants as biological machines that capture free nitrogen from the atmosphere, mine nutrients from deep in the subsoil, and create the living, breathing ecosystem that all productive gardens need. And the system works whether your soil is clay, sand, exhausted farmland, or construction fill that has never grown anything. The method is called green manuring, and it is how farmers kept their land fertile for thousands of years before the chemical industry convinced everyone that soil is just an inert medium that holds plants upright while you pour synthetic nitrogen on top. When in reality, soil is a living system that can regenerate itself if you give it the right plants at the right time. Here's what nobody tells you about dead soil. It is not actually dead. It is starving. Because the bacteria, fungi, and earthworms that create fertility need organic matter and nitrogen to survive. And when you take crops out year after year without putting organic matter back in, the soil biology collapses, and you are left with dirt that cannot support plant life, no matter how much water or sun you provide. The 10 plants you are about to learn about are not just cover crops. They are nitrogen fixers, deep miners, and biomass builders that work together to reverse decades of soil degradation in a fraction of the time it took to destroy it. And every single one of them is more effective than any fertilizer you can buy because they don't just feed the plants. They rebuild the entire soil ecosystem from the ground up. Plant 1. Red Clover for summer nitrogen. Red Clover is Seymour's #1 choice for summer green manure because it grows fast, suppresses weeds, and fixes massive amounts of nitrogen from the air through bacteria in its root nodules. And unlike fertilizer that washes away or evaporates, the nitrogen in clover stays locked in organic form until you dig it into the soil and let it decompose. You plant red clover in late spring, after your main crops are established. Broadcast the seed between rows or over fallow beds and let it grow through the summer while it pulls nitrogen out of the atmosphere and stores it in its roots and leaves. And when you dig it under in the fall, all that nitrogen becomes available to the next crop without ever buying a bag of fertilizer. The key is to dig clover into the soil while the plants are still young and green before they flower. Because young plants are high in nitrogen and decompose quickly, while mature plants have more carbon and take longer to break down. So you want to catch them at the peak of their nitrogen content, when they will rot fast and release nutrients immediately. Red clover also suppresses weeds because it grows in a thick mat that shades out competing plants. And it improves soil structure because its roots create channels for water and air. And when those roots die and decompose, they leave behind organic matter that feeds earthworms and beneficial bacteria. This is the foundation of the system. Nitrogen from the air, not from a bag. Plant 2. Alfalfa for deep soil regeneration. Alfalfa is the queen of green manure because its roots go down 40 feet into the subsoil, breaking through hardpan and compacted layers that no other plant can penetrate. And as those roots grow, they pull up phosphorus, potassium, calcium, and trace minerals from deep underground and deposit them in the topsoil. When the plant dies and decomposes, Seymour calls alfalfa a perennial crop that you plant once and leave for 2 to 3 years, letting it grow deep and strong. And during that time, it is not just fixing nitrogen like other legumes. It is literally mining the subsoil and bringing nutrients to the surface that have been locked away for decades, making them available to shallow-rooted crops that could never reach them on their own. When you finally dig alfalfa under, you are incorporating not just nitrogen, but a complete spectrum of minerals that came from 20 or 30 feet below the surface. And the root channels left behind become permanent pathways for water drainage and air circulation, which means even years after the alfalfa is gone, your soil will be looser and more alive than it was before. The best time to dig alfalfa is just before it reaches full maturity, when the plants are tall and lush but have not yet gone to seed, because that is when they contain the maximum amount of nutrients in the most decomposable form. And if you wait too long, the stems get woody and take much longer to break down into usable humus. Alfalfa is especially valuable in Mediterranean and southern climates where it thrives in heat. But it works anywhere the ground does not freeze solid for months. And if you have soil that has been chemically farmed or compacted by machinery, alfalfa is the single best plant to reverse that damage because it physically breaks up the soil while chemically enriching it at the same time. Plant 3. Winter Rye and Vetch mixture for cold season coverage. Winter rye and vetch planted together in the fall create the perfect combination for soil regeneration during the cold months, because rye produces massive amounts of biomass that adds carbon and organic matter, while vetch fixes nitrogen and keeps the soil biology active even when temperatures drop below freezing. Seymour recommends this mixture for any land that will be fallow in winter, because if you leave soil bare, rain washes away nutrients and nitrogen converts to ammonia gas and disappears into the atmosphere. But if you plant rye and vetch, those nutrients get captured and held in organic form until you dig the crop under in spring and release everything back into the soil for your summer vegetables. The rye grows tall and thick, creating a dense mat of roots that prevents erosion and suppresses winter weeds. And when you dig it under in spring, all that green material rots quickly and becomes humus, while the vetch adds nitrogen that would otherwise cost you $50 or more per 100 square feet if you bought it as chemical fertilizer. You broadcast the seed in late summer or early fall, rake it in lightly, and let it grow through the winter. And by spring, you will have a lush green carpet that you turn under with a spade or rototiller. And within 2 to 3 weeks, it will have decomposed enough that you can plant directly into the bed without any additional amendments. This is how you keep soil alive during the off-season, instead of letting it sit dead and exposed to the elements. And the difference in soil quality after just one winter of rye and vetch is dramatic, with better structure, more earthworms, and noticeably darker color from the increased organic matter. Plant 4. Annual lupins for breaking compaction. Annual lupins are nitrogen fixers with deep taproots that break through compacted soil layers, and Seymour recommends planting them a foot apart in early summer so they have time to grow strong before you dig them under in the fall. The combination of nitrogen fixation and physical soil penetration makes them ideal for ground that has been walked on, driven over, or left hard and lifeless. Lupins are especially useful if you are starting a garden on land that was previously lawn or pasture, because they will break up the compacted surface and add nitrogen at the same time. And when you dig them under, the roots leave channels that allow water to penetrate deeper and give your vegetable roots room to expand. The key with lupins is to plant them early enough in the season that they reach full size before you need to dig them in, because small plants do not contribute much biomass or nitrogen, but mature lupins that are 2 or 3 feet tall will add significant organic matter and break up soil to a depth of 18 inches or more. So now you have summer nitrogen from red clover, deep mining from alfalfa, winter coverage from rye and vetch, and compaction breaking from lupins. Here is where the system gets even more powerful with plants that target specific soil problems. Plant 5. Mustard for rapid biomass and pest suppression. Mustard grows faster than almost any other green manure crop, which makes it perfect for short windows between main crops, and it produces a huge amount of green material in just a few weeks. But the real secret is that mustard suppresses soil pests like eelworms and nematodes that attack potatoes and other root crops. So, it is not just building fertility, it is cleaning the soil of organisms that would otherwise damage your harvest. Seymour notes that mustard is especially popular in cool climates where it grows so fast that it does not tie up the ground for long. And you can plant it in early spring, dig it under in late spring, and still have time to grow a full season of vegetables in the same bed, which means you are getting the benefits of green manure without sacrificing any growing time. The biomass for mustard is high in nitrogen when the plants are young, so you want to dig it under before it flowers. And because it decomposes quickly, you only need to wait a week or 2 before planting your next crop, unlike slower decomposing materials like straw or wood chips that tie up nitrogen for months. Plant 6. Cowpea for hot climates. Cowpea is a summer legume that thrives in heat and grows almost anywhere, making it the perfect choice for southern gardens or any place where temperatures stay high through the summer. And like all legumes, it fixes nitrogen from the air and stores it in root nodules that release it into the soil when you dig the plants under. Seymour describes cowpea as a reliable workhorse that produces abundant biomass and nitrogen without requiring any special care, and you can plant it after your spring crops are harvested. Let it grow through the hottest part of summer when other plants struggle, and then dig it under in late summer or fall to prepare the bed for winter vegetables or to leave it enriched for the following spring. The advantage of cowpea over other legumes is that it tolerates poor soil and drought better than most. So even if your soil is already degraded, cowpea will still grow and start the process of rebuilding fertility. And each season you plant it, the soil gets a little better until eventually you have rich, productive ground that can grow anything. Plant 7. Crotalaria for southern and Mediterranean soils. Crotalaria is a legume that excels in warm, dry climates, and Seymour specifically recommends it for Mediterranean and southern regions, where other green manures might struggle with heat or lack of water. And it fixes nitrogen while producing substantial biomass that breaks down into humus and improves soil structure. The root system of Crotalaria penetrates deeply, which helps break up compacted layers and improves drainage. And when you dig it under, you are adding both nitrogen and organic matter that will feed soil biology and support heavy-feeding crops like tomatoes, squash, and corn. Plant 8. Comfrey as a perennial soil builder. Comfrey is not a true green manure because you do not dig it under every season, but Seymour includes it as a compost plant that functions like a nutrient pump, sending roots deep into the subsoil and bringing up minerals that accumulate in its massive leaves. And you can cut those leaves several times a year and either compost them or bury them directly under heavy feeders like potatoes. A single comfrey plant produces an enormous amount of leaf material in 1 year. And Seymour says that comfrey can make up 1/10 the weight of a good compost pile, which means it is contributing significant nutrients without you having to buy anything. And because it is perennial, you plant it once and harvest from it for 10 or 20 years. The leaves are rich in potassium, nitrogen, and trace minerals. And when you bury them under plants, they decompose quickly and release nutrients directly into the root zone. And the deep roots of comfrey also improve soil structure by creating channels that allow water and air to penetrate deeper than they would in unimproved soil. Plant 9. Taget's Menuda for weed and pest suppression. Taget's Menuda is a tough, fast-growing plant that Seymour recommends for direct green manuring because it makes fine composting material. And it is particularly effective against eelworms, couchgrass, ground elder, and other perennial weeds. So, it serves a dual purpose of building fertility and cleaning the soil of problem organisms. You start the crop indoors and then plant it out a foot apart in spring, and it grows quickly into a dense stand that suppresses weeds and pests. And when you dig it under, it adds nitrogen and organic matter while leaving the soil cleaner and more hospitable to vegetables. Plant 10. Winter legumes for extended cold season coverage. Winter legumes like rough pea, sour clover, Persian clover, crimson clover, burr clover, and Austrian winter pea are all valuable for fixing nitrogen during the cold months, and Seymour notes that they can be sown in late summer after you harvest your summer crops, and they will grow until well into winter and stand until spring if it is not too cold, and then you dig them in when the weather warms up. These plants are especially valuable because they keep nitrogen in the soil during the months when it would otherwise be lost to rain and evaporation, and they protect the soil surface from erosion. And when you dig them in spring, all that captured nitrogen becomes available to your first crops of the season, giving them a head start without any purchased fertilizer. Putting it all together, the 2-year soil revival system. If your soil is truly dead or exhausted, Seymour's method is to dedicate 1 or 2 full years to green manuring before you try to grow food crops, because trying to grow vegetables in lifeless soil is a waste of time and money. But if you spend 1 year building fertility with green manure, you will have productive soil for the next 10 or 20 years. Year 1 starts in the fall with a mixture of rye and vetch, which you let grow all winter and then dig under in spring. And after waiting 2 to 3 weeks for it to decompose, you plant red clover for the summer, which you dig under in the fall. And by the end of year 1, your soil will already be noticeably darker, looser, and more alive. Year 2, you plant alfalfa in spring and let it grow for the entire season, or even into the next year. And during that time, the deep roots are breaking up hardpan and mining nutrients from the subsoil. And when you finally dig it under, you will have soil that is completely transformed with structure, fertility, and biological activity that can support any crop you want to grow. The cost of this system is almost nothing, just the price of seed, which is a fraction of what you would spend on fertilizer over the same period. And the results are permanent, because once you have built up organic matter and soil biology, it stays in the soil and continues to support plant growth year after year. Unlike chemical fertilizers that wash away or evaporate and have to be reapplied every season, this is not a shortcut. This is the way soil was meant to work and the way it worked for thousands of years before industrial agriculture convinced everyone that plants grow in dirt and fertility comes from a bag. When the truth is that plants grow in living soil and fertility comes from the plants themselves when you use them correctly. The 10 plants you just learned about are not magic. They are biology. And they work because they tap into systems that have been running since the first plants colonized land 400 million years ago. Systems that capture nitrogen from the air, mine minerals from rock, and build humus from dead plant material. And all you have to do is plant the right species at the right time and let them do what they evolved to do. Dead soil is not a permanent condition. It is a temporary problem that can be solved in 1 or 2 growing seasons if you stop trying to feed the plants and start feeding the soil. And once you make that shift, you will never buy another bag of fertilizer again, because your soil will produce its own fertility from nothing but air, water, sunlight, and the 10 plants that John Seymour proved can revive any soil, no matter how lifeless it seems.